Good afternoon, everyone. This is Don Gulling, CEO of Vertex Consulting. Appreciate you joining today. Looking forward to having hopefully a free-flowing conversation with you. In way of introduction, we've got several folks joining us on the webinar today. Obviously, you've got me, Don Gulling, and Brittany DeFilly from Vertex Consulting. And a couple of our panelists are Steve Halley. We've got Christoph and Eric as well, all from RingCentral. So the goal of today's webinar primarily is to talk about how folks are using Microsoft Teams inside their organizations. They're typically very happy with, ad hoc video conferencing, with Teams meetings, maybe the Teams chat, although I think all of us are probably a little bit worn out with all these communications channels, right? But what's not going so well with Teams is in skin its phone capabilities with the outside world, and specifically things like more advanced calling features, call routing options, auto attendance, voicemail functions, and really a mobile app as well. Those things are just kind of lacking. Microsoft, as we all know, has licenses you can add to add phone functionality. We've done that here at Vertex. Not dogging it, but truthfully, it's just kind of clunky. Doesn't work that great. That's why we're having the webinar today. What we want to present to you is a solution we've got that empowers you with all the abilities of Teams. You keep that, you maintain that familiar interface, you maintain that ease of use and that ease of deployability you're comfortable with, but you add to it easy to use, intuitive, but also sophisticated and powerful call handling features. And you can do all that without adding another Microsoft license, which is always nice. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the RingCentral team, and they're going to present to you the background on how this all works, talk about what your options are, and we're also going to do a demo. So take it away, guys.
All right, thanks, Don. Thanks for having us today. My name is Steve Halley. I'm on the major accounts team here at RingCentral, covering Florida. And like Don said, my solution engineer, Christoph, and one of our product marketing directors, Eric Kinney. You can go to the next slide, Eric. I want to give you first a little bit of an update on RingCentral. I mean, RingCentral was built from a clean sheet of paper, purpose-built product in the cloud for the cloud. And so our mission from over 20 years ago was to simplify communications and let you work on any device that you want to be on. So that can be mobile, laptop, in the office, remote, wherever it might be. We want to meet you where you want to work and where your customers are. And part of that is we're going to talk about one of those avenues today is Microsoft Teams. And first, just a little background of RingCentral. So we really meet our customers, your customers, where they are today. So we offer really two sides of that communications coin. We have the contact centers. If you have support teams, sales teams, customer service teams, from that side, that's a customer communication. But we also incorporate all the modes that customers want to operate on today, right? From the digital channels, social media, SMS, those type of things as well. But the focus today is more going to be on the employee communications, the message, the video, phone. We're going to talk about the phone piece that's routed and all the tools that come with it routed through Teams today. So RingCentral, like I said, has been around over 20 years, 450,000 customers plus out there today, and all around the world, a lot of seats. And the main thing we're really proud of is the 18 plus quarters of just 5 nines reliability. That's the highest reliability that is offered in cloud solutions today. And we, if it's not up, it doesn't matter what the services you have to offer if no one can reach them. And we've really built this super global highway of connectivity. And this is just a small snapshot of it, but around the world that allows us to keep an active, hot, always on, never closed reliability for you that is going to keep the cloud solution, up and going at all times. A lot of you out there today follow Gartner, Frost & Sullivan, Forrester, all of these analyst firms. Really, everyone likes the RingCentral story, but I think it's more about, how we're, the 8th time of a leader in like the Gartner Magic Quadrant is not only where we are today, but how poised are we to lead your communication strategy for the next 5-7 years and beyond. So, and while we love all those analysts Analyst awards. This is what we're most proud of, right? Gartner Peer Insights. If you need access, we can help you with that. Really, we can get real-time reviews on anything in life today. A new restaurant down the street, or a new Tommy Bahama shirt they have out there. But so this is really about real-time feedback of how's the service, how's the support, how's the ongoing development of the product from there. And it's the trust that all the customers put in us from there, and the trust is really built on our layer of security that is through everything that that we do. So whether it's HIPAA, high trust, PCI, whatever it is, your data is safe, and so that's a trust that they put in, because security is really in our DNA from here. And then just the last slide I'll talk about is our integration. So we'll get into more of this a little bit, but one of the beautiful things of taking a market leader like RingCentral and incorporating it in with Teams is you get to take advantage of all these integrations in our, I call them several suitcases full of APIs we have out there to really enhance your business communication. So I just wanted to start with that, Don, offer a few points on RingCentral, and really going to get to the fun stuff now. So turn it over here to Eric.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Don, for the invite and allowing me to join today and chat with everyone about RingCentral for Microsoft Teams, which is my favorite topic. So what we'll do is we'll just spend a little bit of time today just talking about the Teams landscape, how people are using Teams, and then, of course, how RingCentral can add value to any Teams deployment. So, I think everybody knows the story of Teams and the growth that they've seen over the last few years. I think the story when it comes to how Teams got deployed at most organizations is pretty similar. And that prior to March 2020, everybody was kind of doing an evaluation of UCaaS solutions and just kind of doing the standard testing and planning for a really kind of controlled phased deployment maybe. And then all of a sudden, March 2020 hits and everybody has to go work from home, and everybody needs a tool to keep everybody communicating and collaborating, even though that they're no longer in the office. And what most people found, because they are 365 subscribers, was that they had Teams. So it was something that they could implement really quickly, and there was going to be no additional cost for that. And that was the thing that they turned to keep everybody connected during those, initial few months of the pandemic. And as time has gone on, it's really become an ingrained part of the way that they collaborate and work together. And we really do see heavy usage with the team messaging and the video meeting capabilities within Teams. That said, as Don alluded to before, there is a telephony offering from Microsoft that you can put into Teams. But what we find when most customers evaluate it is that they don't find it to be a mature offering. And that's something that they feel comfortable implementing into a production environment. So what they typically do is go out and find a third party that they can integrate within Teams. So that's what we're going to talk about here today is, integrating, still leveraging Microsoft Teams for its video and messaging capabilities. We understand that that's, how most folks have standardized in terms of, again, messaging and video, but turning to RingCentral to really help with a lot of the other capabilities that we offer and that we're really well known for. So things like telephony, SMS, fax, the integrations that Steve talked to, and that's what we'll cover here today. One of the things that I always like to talk about too when we have these conversations is what you get with a 365 license, because not everyone might be totally aware of what you do get and what you don't get. So the most common types of licenses that we see on the 365 side are E1, E3, and E5. Now, what not everybody understands is that you don't get a phone license with every type of 365 license. It actually is only included with the E5. So if you have E1 or E3 and you're planning on incorporating telephony into Teams, you have to buy a Teams phone license from Microsoft, which is $8 a user a month. The thing about that is that only gives you the right to put telephony into Teams. It opens up the door for you to embed a phone into Teams. It does not get you a calling plan. So then you actually have to go out and procure another calling plan whether it be from Microsoft, whether it be something like RingCentral Direct Routing, Operator Connect. There's a couple of different options out there. What we find from most customers that are on E1 or E3 is that they don't really have the appetite to pay that cover charge of the $8 per user per month for the right to embed telephony into Teams. They really just want to go out and buy a solution that gives them everything that they need to fill those gaps that are missing or created by Microsoft and Teams from a single vendor with a single license. And that's what we're really trying to accomplish here with our Microsoft embedded dialer, which we'll show a demo of a little bit later on. The other thing that I think that's super important to talk about too is that phone is something that's really important. You know, I know that there's a narrative out there that, you know, people are less reliant on phone, and that phone isn't really a critical part of the communication stack, and it's really just not true. You know, Salesforce went out and did this huge survey of consumers, and they asked them, what are the ways that you want to communicate with the companies that you do business with? Phone was number one. You know, almost 59% of customers, that was the number one way that they wanted to communicate with the companies they do business with, ahead of email, ahead of in-person, ahead of doing an online chat. So, you know, it's important to have all of those channels available so customers can reach you on their terms and talk to you the way that they want to. But phone is still the most important piece of that stack. So it really is critical to have those telephony capabilities available to your customers. The other thing too is that, you know, we commissioned Ipsos to do some research. Same thing, asking, you know, IT decision makers and business decision makers how important phone was to them. And what we found was that nearly all of them said it's super important for client engagement, or actually to generate revenue for their organization. 92% saying it's actually the primary way that they communicate with their customers, and almost 2/3 saying that their phone usage is actually going to increase. So, you know, phone is still something that is critically important to the communication stack, especially when it comes to external collaboration and communicating, you know, with your customers, with your partners, with your vendors. Another really key part of this is that, you know, when we think of a phone, it's the thing that you pick up and dial. But, you know, an extension of telephony is SMS. SMS is a really crucial channel. And, you know, if we go back to that, you know, previous slide, we saw that I think about half of customers said that they want to communicate with the companies they do business with through SMS. So 88% want to talk through SMS on water-related issues. They would, you know, prefer to get a text and, you know, to know when they can talk to a customer service agent instead of holding. And of course, me as the marketer, you know, seeing a 90% average open rate for SMS, unheard of with doing, you know, compared to something like email. So SMS has become an increasingly important way to communicate with customers. And the tricky part of, you know, doing a Teams deployment is that SMS isn't something that is offered from Teams. So what we find is that a lot of customers that have standardized on Teams but are interested in doing SMS have to go out and find another vendor to partner with to integrate SMS within Teams. Same goes for fax. You know, I know everybody gets a chuckle from seeing this one, thinking about fax, and, you know, it's kind of an older technology, but it is something that is still super prevalent, you know, especially in industries that are regulated, like in healthcare and finance, still very reliant on faxes. But the thing about fax is that everybody wants to do an e-fax. There is nobody out there that is looking forward to having a fax machine sitting on their desk somewhere and using that for their faxing. We all want to do it online. And again, fax is not something that's offered by Microsoft. So being able to go out and find a solution that you could, you know, on the fax side, that you can go and integrate with Teams is something that is very appealing to customers and something that they're looking for as well. There are other couple things that are missing from Teams when it comes to external collaboration as well. You know, we've seen some extended periods of downtimes, and, you know, timing couldn't have been more interesting, because looking at headlines today, there was a 365 outage today that was impacting Teams, customers in the US and I think Europe as well. So it's been a challenge for them, you know, making sure that reliable and up. You know, as Steve mentioned before, if your service isn't up, it really doesn't matter what you're offering, right? So, Teams has become tough, as that single communication tool that you can depend on, that is always going to be there. Their SLA for availability is 4 nines, which amounts to about 52.5 minutes a year. But they also had 2 big outages at the beginning of the year that had about 7+ hours of downtime. So they almost they more than 7x their SLA within the first 6 weeks of the year. So reliability's been a real challenge for teams, and that's something that was evidenced even a little bit further today. The other thing that we hear when we're talking to customers about Teams is that they say, hey, I'm just going to stick with Teams because it's, quote unquote free. And we always have to have that conversation about it's not free. It's included with your 365 subscription. But the important thing is to understand what that total cost of ownership is. So, what you are paying, as part of that 365 bundle for Teams, the cost, for end user support, the administration cost, and having to manage Teams in a couple of different places, end user training. A third party went out and actually did a study on the total cost of ownership of all the UCaaS solutions. And what they found was that in terms of total cost of ownership, Teams was actually the most expensive one to run. It was 22% higher than the industry average. So I know it's a great way. It's one way to look at it, is to say like, hey, Teams is free because it's included in my 365 subscription. But I think it is critically important to take that step back and really take a look at the total cost of ownership and other soft costs that might be contributing to that total cost of ownership when it comes to Teams. The other thing that we hear from customers about Teams and is when it comes to analytics. When it comes to analytics, the out-of-the-box capabilities that you get from Teams are a little bit light. You're going to get some usage and adoption reporting, and you're going to get some light quality of service reporting. Anything beyond that is going to require some advanced analytics licensing through something like Power BI. Power BI is extremely expensive. So that adds to that total cost of ownership if you do want to incorporate something like advanced analytics. The thing is that it's not only the license cost. You need a person who knows how to manage Power BI, how to build reports, how to make sure that they're running, how to distribute them to people that might not be data experts. So there's that added cost for a resource to manage all those reports as well. So those any sort of advanced analytics within Teams becomes pretty pricey pretty quick. And of course, on the telephony side, it is missing, some advanced PBX capabilities. So things like heads-up display, automatic call recording, things that have just been standard in RingCentral for a really long time are not available within Teams. They don't have a contact center offering. So if you do want to go and integrate a contact center, again, you have to go out and find a third party to partner with to bring contact center in. And the third thing, which I think is actually the most important, is that they've shifted their strategy a little bit here over the last couple of quarters. But Teams is largely not embeddable in other business apps. When they say that they have integrations, what they mean is that you can bring other third-party apps and bring them into Teams. RingCentral has really taken a different strategy with this because what we know is that everybody has these existing workflows, and we want to make those better, not force everybody to change them and bring them into the UCaaS solution. So an example of this is the way that we integrate with CRMs. So as a recovering salesperson myself, I remember the days of having to make 100+ phone calls a day, and actually picking up the phone and dialing 100 phone numbers a day becomes really time consuming. It takes 5-10 seconds each time. But when you do that 100 times a day, 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year, that's a lot of time spent just dialing the phone. So what we can do with RingCentral is actually embed our dialer into something like Salesforce or HubSpot or Zoho. And what we can do is put a little RingCentral phone icon next to each phone number in a contact record, and it's click to dial, click to SMS. So you can really kind of cut down on the time to dial. You can automatically log calls. So we have all of these automations available that really help sales focus on what's important, and that is selling, as opposed to doing these manual tasks like dialing the phone or just inserting a call record into a contact. So when it comes to what we've got for Microsoft Teams and the way that we integrate it, The really great thing about RingCentral is that we offer flexibility with two different offerings when it comes to our Teams integration. So the first one is the embedded app. This is the new launch. We've relaunched our embedded app, and that's what we're going to be showing here today. The great thing about the embedded app is that you don't need a Teams phone license for it to work. So if you are on an E1 or an E3 license, we talked about before how if you typically, if you wanted to embed telephony into Teams and you were on E1 or E3, you would have to buy the Teams phone license at $8 per user per month, and then buy a calling plan on top of that. With the embedded app, you don't need to do that. You don't need to buy any additional licensing from Microsoft. You just buy a standard RingCentral license, and you can embed all of RingCentral's capabilities into Microsoft Teams with just a standard RingCentral license, no additional cost needed. So we'll get into that a little bit more a little bit later on, but that's the one solution that we've got out there, typically for customers on E1 or E3 licenses. For customers that are on E5, or if you have ponied up for the Teams phone license, we also have a direct routing solution available. And with direct routing, you can actually use the Teams native dialer to power phone calls or to make phone calls. But on the back end, RingCentral's infrastructure is going to be put in place to actually route and power all that calling on the back end. So it's a fantastic solution. If you're saying like, hey, I want to incorporate as little as possible in terms of integrations into Teams. I just want to keep my users focused on what's available in there today. Direct routing is a fantastic solution because RingCentral actually becomes completely invisible to the end user. It just uses all of Teams' native capabilities to power calling. But of course, you do need that E5 license or the Teams phone license in addition to what you would need to purchase from RingCentral in order to make direct routing work. So let's talk about why, now that we've talked about just some of the shortcomings and some of the gaps that we typically see in Teams, here are the reasons that, that customers typically choose RingCentral as that third-party solution to integrate into Teams to power telephony. We've talked about some of these here, so I'm not going to go into too deep detail for all of them. Advanced phone capabilities, we talked a little bit about, some of the stuff that was missing. And of course, RingCentral, known as a PBX provider with advanced capabilities for decades now, we can incorporate all of those into your Teams environment so your phone power users don't miss a beat. Steve alluded to this earlier, and we've got to update a slide for you, Steve, because it's actually 19 straight quarters of 5 nines reliability. So less than a minute and a half of downtime every quarter compared to the 7+ hours of downtime that we've seen from Teams. High TCO of Teams, we're going to skip that one and cover it in the next slide. Analytics. Analytics are fantastic because we're widely recognized as a leader in UCaaS analytics, and those come in two flavors as well. So IT analytics, so being able to do things like measure quality of service, so you can do things like down to the ISP level, really be able to diagnose where an issue might be coming from. And fix it really quickly, so you can reduce the mean time to resolution on those help desk tickets and reduce the cost of a help desk ticket. The other great part that we've got on the analytics side is these line of business analytics, and what that can do is really help drive revenue or reduce cost. And the way that you can do that is by looking at really some historical data that might tip you off on call volume and help you forecast that for the future. So for example, you can look back in the holidays of last year and see that your call volume increased by 40% in the 2 weeks leading up to Christmas, right? So you got to staff up in those 2 weeks, same 2 weeks in the upcoming year to make sure that you capture all of that potential revenue that's coming from people dialing into you. You might also see something like, hey, my call volume drops by 60% after 4 o'clock every day, but I'm remaining fully staffed. So you may be able to do some staffing adjustments based on, if call volume is dropping off to really help reduce those labor costs and really make a positive impact on the bottom line. Integrations, we talked about. Contact center, we talked about. Global reach, RingCentral is available in 45 different countries. So if you are doing an acquisition, if you are expanding to a different company, the odds are that RingCentral is going to be available in those countries that you are expanding to. So there's not going to be a need to go out and find a local provider. RingCentral is going to be able to help you stand up telephony within those countries and regions, all without leaving your desk. All right, so the last thing I wanted to cover before we get into the real TCO of Teams Phone, or before we get into the demo, is the real cost of ownership for Teams Phone. And as I mentioned, if you're on those E1 or E3 licenses, you have to buy the Teams Phone license plus a calling plan, and all in that's $15. But if you do the comparison of what you get for that $15, and then compare it to a RingCentral license, I think what you'll find is that you get a product that is not quite as good. And if you go out and secure all of the capabilities that are missing from Teams from another third party, it's actually going to be more expensive. So what do I mean by that? 4 nines SLA for Teams. So you're not going to get as much uptime as you do with RingCentral. Capabilities, PBX capabilities not as strong. So if it is missing something like an operator console, again, you have to go out to a third party and procure that. API is not quite as strong. Integration strategy is a little bit different and really doesn't help you embed Teams into other places. Desk phones, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, not quite as many desk phone integrations. Global reach, not quite as strong. Analytics, we talked about, you got to go out and buy a Power BI license if you do want to get those advanced analytics, which is super expensive. Don't offer SMS and fax, so there's added cost there if you are dependent on SMS and fax and want to integrate it into Teams. So again, that base price of $15, might be come out in front as something that's a little bit less than RingCentral. But when you stack up, what you actually get and those other solutions that you're going to have to go out and buy, in addition to the Teams Phone and calling plan, you're going to get something that's not quite as good for a little bit more money. And of course, RingCentral offers all of these capabilities as part of our core package, and you'll only have to partner with RingCentral, right? You're going to get it all from us through one really slick integration, which we're going to show up here in just 1 second. We talked about reliability, so we can skip this. So let's get into the good stuff. Let's show the demo here. So I bring up Teams here, and Steve, if you could just give me an okay to let me know that everybody is seeing the Teams app.
Hey, can you pause just 1 second there? I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Great content so far, by the way. Appreciate that. One question is, where is the integration point between Teams and RingCentral? And I think the way we're going to answer that, that's from Art, but Art, I think the way to answer that is, it's going to sound a little anticlimactic, but basically, if you look on the left of this screen here, you'll see a little R icon with the number 1 there. It's a downloadable app plugin. So you go to the Teams store. It's a free download if you have a RingCentral calling plan. You just download that app. It plugs right in the console. You log in with your credentials and you're off to the races. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, and just to add on that a little bit, Don, there's a couple of great things. We had this integration before. So, with the version 1 of our Teams embedded app integration, what would happen is that you would embed essentially what was the full RingCentral desktop app into Teams. And when I placed a call, what would happen is that the full RingCentral desktop app would pop out. So that created a couple of issues. So one, it was that it created some admin overhead. They not only needed to administer the Teams app, but they needed to keep an eye on the RingCentral app as well, which again, created a little admin overhead, not a fantastic experience for our admins. Second, it created some performance issues. It took a while for the RingCentral app to load. So there were some issues there around performance and user experience. Third thing was that we actually showed the message and video capabilities from RingCentral because it was the full RingCentral desktop app. And that created some confusion for end users because they weren't quite sure which one to use for which purpose. Do I use Teams for messaging and video, or do I use RingCentral for messaging and video? And that's something that we really address with this version 2 of this integration that we're launching now. So as Don alluded to, it is super simple to get this plugged into your Teams environment. It is available in Microsoft App Stores. So if an end user wants to go in here into the app section, they'll be able to find it, install it themselves. If they have the RingCentral credentials, they'll be able to do it completely as a user-led kind of an operation. If an admin prefers to do that for them, it's pretty simple as well. What they're going to do is just log into RingCentral Service Web and just follow a 3-step process. So the first step will just be to connect RingCentral to your 365 admin account. Second step will be to download the integration, which will give you this interface that you're seeing right here. And then the third step will be to install the phone plugin, which we'll demo here in just 1 second. They can then choose to push
point. Forgot to mention that. I was pointing to Al's question about the doing it yourself or DIY for a single user, but yes, group rollout tools for larger deployments and centralized management of deployments exist, and Ring is very adept at having Teams integration on a large scale. It's not uncommon for users with 500, 1,000, even much larger, to do a Teams integration and have it deployed centrally. So if you're a larger organization, you definitely have that capability.
Yep. So now that we've got this integrated, you can see, and again, we're a little anticlimactic here, but you can see how it would appear to an end user. We've got the RingCentral icon, within the Teams environment here. So if I'm an end user and I want to make a call, I just click on the RingCentral icon. The first thing that you will see here is my call history. So you can see I call myself quite a bit because I do this demo pretty frequently, but you can see your complete call history. And then if you just want to tab into just see your missed calls, you can do that as well. Next thing is call recordings. So this is actually an innovation that we made in Q4. You can get call recording from RingCentral. Before, you actually had to flip back and forth between Teams and RingCentral to access your call recordings. We've actually introduced those call recordings into Teams now. So they are searchable, findable, listenable within the Teams environment. No need to switch back and forth between Teams and RingCentral. When it comes to placing calls, super simple to do. You can, before I even get into that, you can see here this drop-down menu with my caller ID. You can see all of the numbers that I've got assigned to this specific account. I can choose which one I want to show up on my outbound caller ID right from here. So if I've got more than one line assigned to me, I can pick which number I want to show up on my caller ID. Next, I can actually search from my company directory if I'm calling somebody internally. So you can see all of the contacts that are available to me, or I can dial from the keypad right here or my keyboard. Super easy to make a call. I'm not going to do it this way. Instead, I'm actually going to go to this contact record. Couple of things to point out here. When you click on a contact record, you can very easily place a phone call, send an SMS, add them to your contact records, send them a fax, or even block that number. So here, this is my cell phone. So I'm actually just going to call this number, and you can see the RingCentral dialog. I went over on this other screen here, so I'm going to drag this over, and then I'm going to answer this call on my cell phone. And you can see the RingCentral dialog that then pops up as part of this active call. So the thing that I'll point out here is that I mentioned before in the previous iteration of this integration, the full RingCentral desktop app would pop out and you would get the video and message capabilities from RingCentral as well. You can see here that we've withheld those capabilities. There is no video and message as part of this. So it really kind of helps create a much better end user experience. It's much clearer about what this integration is for and really how they should use it. Because we are only presenting the calling capabilities. So now I've got this active call working. I muted myself so I don't have three lines of audio going here and create an echo, but I can mute and unmute calls. I can also access a dial pad. So if I call into a line and need to dial an extension, super easy to do. Audio controls, so I can choose my microphone and speaker combination very easily. I can add a third person to the line. So I've got, another person internally that I want to add. I would just dial their name and then add them to the call. And that will create a three-way conference call. I can put the person on hold. So now I'm hearing the hold music in my ear, take them off hold. If I click on this more tab here, you can see I have the ability to transfer them. And we give a couple of options when it comes to transfer. So we can do a consultant transfer. So if I want to let Steve know that, I'm going to transfer someone over to them or over to him, and I'm going to let him know, what the issue that they're calling about is first, I can do that. I can do a direct transfer, or I can actually transfer them right to someone else's voicemail. Some other capabilities here include call recording, parking a call into a public lot where anybody can pick up, or even flipping it to another device. So you can see, on the performance side, you can see how fast it's loaded. So we resolved that issue, and we resolved that issue of too many features, of video and messaging within the integration. We've kept it solely focused on phone, And that's what we're really kind of focusing on here is creating the best telephony complement for Microsoft Teams.
Quick question.
So I'm going to end this call. Yeah,
oh,
sure.
Go ahead. Yeah, a couple of
No,
things.
please.
One is on touched it in two places. Question came through about where recordings are saved and how are they archived and so on. I noticed on the phone tab on the left, you've got both calls and recordings there, but you also mentioned ad hoc recordings. Can you briefly touch on recording again and talk about archival and storage?
Yeah, so when I'm not sure if you caught it, but in that call dialog there was a record button. So we offer on-demand call recording, but then automatic call recording as well. So all of those, you can set it up either way, and then all of your call recordings are going to be saved here. In terms of archival, we have a tool called Archiver, which is an integration that we offer as part of most packages with RingCentral. And what that does is enable you to back up all of your recordings to the storage solution of your choice. So whether it's an on-prem server you've got or something like Dropbox, Box, OneDrive, and you want to save them there, we actually have a tool that helps you store all of the communications that happen through RingCentral. Voicemails, call recordings, so on and so on, pretty simply. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, so by default, the recordings are in the cloud, but you can add on-site archival if you require that. And you can also
Correct.
archive SMS and everything else as well if you need to for compliance purposes.
Absolutely. Christoph, anything that you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I would say that we keep it in the cloud for 90 days. Okay, then it's first in, first out after that. But if you want to keep it as long as you'd like, right? So that SFTP and Google and Dropbox and whatnot, you can archive it and then keep it as long as you'd like on that storage of your choice.
Yep.
A couple of other things I would say I'd add to that would be that if depending on there could be a lot of things that we're backing up, like say SMS or voicemail and recordings and messages and whatnot, and depends on how you want to retrieve it, right? So if they're actively always looking for that, we have other partners that we have such as RingClone and Data Lake and whatnot, where how the indexing is done, right? So it's really easy to search and grab the content that you need even like years down the line.
Yeah, thanks, Christoph.
No problem.
Go ahead, Eric.
Cool. So just a couple of other things to touch on here. Yeah, so as part of this integration as well, we're going to offer you this unified inbox. And when you click on that inbox, you can see all of your voicemails, your text messages, and your fax. So when I click on the inbox, it defaults to everything, but you can get a little bit more granular. If you just want to check your voicemails, you can check all of your voicemails here. Great thing about voicemails is that we also offer integrated voicemail transcription. So you don't have to just sit here and listen to your voicemails if you just want to give them a quick read. That is something that we've incorporated into Teams as well. SMS is a big one. As I mentioned previously, Microsoft does not offer SMS as part of their Teams offering, and that is something that you can incorporate into Teams very simply with your RingCentral license. You can see that the text messages, your text message history will show up here. If I do want to send a new one, I'm just going to click select text. Cool thing about this too is that we support group text messaging as well. So you can see, I can check this box if I've added 2 or more folks to this text message thread to create a group text. So this is actually a differentiator versus us and some of those other solutions out there that might be offering a Teams integration, is that they actually do not support group text. So this is a fantastic feature, if your organization is dependent on SMS. You can also see all of your faxes here as well. So inbound and outbound faxes, no fax machine needed, obviously. To send a fax, super easy. Same thing, I'm just going to click on that plus button. I'm going to send a fax. I can choose who I'm sending it to, the number it's coming from. I can choose a cover page from all the different templates that we have available, or choose your own. And then, of course, I would just add a document and send it off to them. So again, fax not something offered by Microsoft. So being able to get that solution from RingCentral for telephony, for SMS, for fax, and most importantly, it all comes from the same number. So again, what we see from some of our other competitors is that you have to buy multiple lines for these different capabilities, which really adds to cost because you do have to buy those multiple lines. Here, we're just going to give you one number, and it's going to give you the ability to phone, SMS, and fax. We talked about some of the limitations in terms of PBX capabilities. Heads-up display is a big one, and this is something that we've incorporated into Teams. So if I'm someone like a receptionist or an admin assistant, and I manage a lot of lines or manage a lot of inbound calls and need to route them to different folks within my organization, heads-up display is a fantastic tool because it just gives you this bird's eye view of all those lines that you manage and all of the availabilities of those folks as well. So if I do get a call for them, it's super simple for me to see if they're available and then transfer those calls over to those contacts. One other thing that I'm super excited about that we have integrated as well is unified contacts. So you can see here that we have got both Microsoft and RingCentral contacts integrated into Teams. So it doesn't matter where your contacts live; they are all going to be available, searchable, contactable from this Teams interface. You don't need to switch back and forth. The other thing that we have also released that is a little bit challenging to show within this environment is bidirectional presence sync. And this is actually a little bit more applicable on the direct routing side. But what we heard a lot of times from our customers was that if they had deployed something like direct routing and were running it through a desk phone, if I entered a call on my desk phone, it did not properly update my status on Teams to busy. We've solved that with bidirectional presence sync. So now in that instance of I do accept a call on my desk phone, what will happen is that my presence in Teams will automatically sync to busy. So it goes, like I said, bidirectional. So it goes both ways. It does apply to both, desktop apps and then hard phones as well. A quick word about hard phones. We do have a really extensive set of integrations with desk phones through RingCentral. So, we'll share this link a little bit later on, but you can see all of the different devices, all of the different headsets, conference phone lines, all these things that are available and, for us to integrate, RingCentral into as well.
One quick question as we
All
pivot
right.
to the next thing is relating to this integration between two apps on the desktop. So you've got Teams you're using for video and meetings and so on, and using Ring for voice communications, recordings and whatnot. What about if a situation arises where there's some technical issue? How does the user determine, is it a Microsoft problem? Is this a Ring problem? And how is that addressed? Yeah,
it's very easy to do actually. So I'm glad you brought that up. So, especially in light of the outage today. So, I mean, if you were logging onto Teams and the RingCentral app isn't loading, what I would encourage someone to do is just check the other tabs within Teams. So, clicking on Teams, chat, whatever the case may be. If those aren't loading, Teams is down. And as a result, the integration within the Teams app is not going to be accessible. That said, the way that we put this integration into place is by you buying a RingCentral license. And this integration is included in all of our new package types. So when you buy a RingCentral license, you are going to get a RingCentral login as part of that, right? So what users can do in the instance of a Teams outage is actually go to a web browser and go to RingCentral and use those credentials to log in, or they can download the RingCentral app if they so choose. But either way, you're probably going to be able to access RingCentral because high availability is something that we're known for. So in those cases, when Teams goes down, you are going to have some redundancy on the communication side because RingCentral is a highly available communication service. And as I mentioned, as part of a license, you're going to get credentials to just log into the RingCentral service directly. So you'll be able to access your phone. And you'll also be able to access the message and video capabilities if your license type permits to keep that communication and collaboration lines open. Does that answer your question, Don?
Yeah, absolutely. That was from one of our attendees. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so that is it in terms of the demo. One other thing I wanted to tell you about is something that's coming here in the second half of the year is the RingCentral for Teams mobile app. And of course, Google Slides isn't loading, so we'll just stay out of slideshow mode. But what we're doing is extending all of these capabilities that you saw in the desktop demo today to mobile. So you can see here, this is the Teams mobile app, and you can see these little tabs running along the bottom there. You can add a RingCentral icon to the Teams mobile app, and it will work. You can access a phone keypad,
we're getting a little bit of choppy
so it really
audio
does extend that experience
here.
beyond the desktop experience and into mobile.
We're getting a little bit of choppy audio on your end. It's the second time it's happened, so just want to make sure
that
you're
better?
still on whatever. Yeah.
Okay, my apologies. That was pretty much it. I just wanted to, kind of touch on that this mobile app is coming. It's something that you'll be able to incorporate into the Teams mobile app. Obviously, with mobile and remote workforces, it's more important than ever. So this is something that's coming in the second half of the year. And just to kind of wrap things up, we talked about all these things today, but just to kind of reiterate all of the things that you'll get with this RingCentral integration, whereas you might see a gap with Teams today. And that's all I had, Don.
Let me ask you another question about this integration. So let's say you've got a customer that is today using Mitel Connect on-site and has got, a couple hundred users across multiple sites, but they also have Teams, and they're using Teams predominantly for meetings and video meetings and maybe chat. How could you see a hybrid approach working where you're using essentially all three? Maybe they want to deploy a new contact center, or they want to use Teams for some remote users. Can you envision a situation where they'd potentially be able to get the three of them to work together, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to let Christoph take a crack at that one.
I will, yeah. So basically, the Mitel, that would be just premise-based PBX, right, Don?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And this, we see this, it's quite common where they have either like an Avaya or a Mitel or Cisco. And then there's Teams, right? So Teams kind of came and during the pandemic, and this is what we're using. It's like Eric said, quote unquote free, but if they're working from home, sometimes there's challenges. Some of these providers need VPN access, and it becomes choppy, poor audio quality, and we'll kind of use one app for everything, right? And really the play is to kind of displace the Mitel, because we are in the cloud. But some of the shortcomings that Teams has of not having that kind of uptime and reliability, right? That's where we feel that gap, right? So we have that 5, to be honest with you, over 2 years now, 6 nines uptime that you're getting from the Mitel, and they could basically displace it. Still be able to fax, still be able to SMS, still be able to make calls, right? And when I share my screen shortly, we could uncover some of the things that we can do that makes it easier. Auto attendance and call queues and setting up users and assigning phones makes it's really easy in RingCentral.
Well, I think that would be a good segue there. I mean, that is one of the reasons to to purchase RingCentral for Microsoft Teams is the back end. It's the of course the connectivity and uptime we talked about, but also really just the tools, the easy to use tools, setting up a user. Christoph knows this. I think this is so easy. A sales guy might be able to do it, but I'll let you guys decide from there.
Let's not get carried away now, Steve. I'm just joking around. You guys can see my screen right here. It says home, users, phone system, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. I'm just going to cover a really high level because there is only 10 minutes left. This is the back end. This is where the magic happens. Well, where we set things up and we make it easy for you, right? So whatever you decide from a user experience, if you want to consume RingCentral from Teams, right, or a web interface, or the mobile, or however it is, right, any kind of plugins, the basic stuff comes here, right? And here's where we manage users in the phone system, right? And so, for example, numbers, we are a CLEC, okay? So the customers that come to us, right? So even if you have customers today and they're not Mitel, and they move to RingCentral, Steve likes to say we take their DIDs when we port them over to RingCentral, we supercharge them. So that number now is a single reach number, right? So when you can either call, SMS, MMS, right, or fax directly to that number. Okay, so we enhance that experience as they move over to RingCentral, and we give you and actually the customers the ability to manage it internally, right? So as my users here, everyone has a DID. If they don't have one today, they're going to get one with a RingCentral license. Okay, we can go ahead and purchase licenses and whatnot, so we could sort them. These are company numbers, really easy to add numbers. So you'll have access. Again, we're a global provider. So you have access to Canada and US as domestic, as we call it, right? But then there's Australia, Mexico. There's a bunch of other countries that you have the ability to choose numbers from, whether they're local numbers, they're toll-free numbers, they're vanity numbers, okay? We have the ability to just go into this wizard, select it, right? Maybe assign it to a cost center for billing services. I'm going to choose like an 800 number, right? Just for demo purposes. And we'll add it. It's adding it to a shopping cart. It's like shopping on Amazon, right? It's really easy. Any questions so far in the chat there, Don? I'm just going to accept here, and spits out a receipt, and I'm done. It's that easy. Within seconds, I've just added a toll-free number to my tenant. Okay, and you can assign that number anywhere you want. Okay, managing that number as it comes in to a specific site or globally or whatnot. We have a really cool visual IVR editor. I'm just going to touch on really quick. Where back in the days we would draw call flow diagrams. Well, here as you build it, right, it's saved, right, and you can edit. Go ahead and delete this from here, delete this here. Maybe I want to move this dial by name directory up to the top. I don't want it to be option number 6. Maybe I'd like to be option number 9, right? So it's really simple to move things around and add new menus as well, right? So this is how we create and manage our call flows, multi-site call flows, things like that as well. Okay.
That's one of the big advantages, right? We have of having those easy to use tools and things that the teams calling plans just don't offer from that standpoint. So that's really where a lot of the power is, but it's it's simplicity in deployment.
Yeah, ask your customers if they ever tried building something like this, a multi-site IVR within Teams. It's not fun, right? We've had customers come to us who are like, okay, we can't do this. We need to have RingCentral power the back end. But again, so just to touch on things that there's overhead paging, things that traditional PBXs that Michael, you asked Don, we could do. So we page over phones. We have overhead paging, right? How we emergency calling, right, and things like that as well, where we're mapping to based on subnet and things like that, where we're compliant on Kerry's Law, Ray Bombs Act, and whatnot. So it's all there that's needed. We showed the phones, right? So it's really simple to, Eric showed phones earlier, really simple to add phones, assign it to users and things like that, move it around. And even when you're purchasing a license, we can attach a phone to it. So if you're shipping it directly to a user, you ship it right from the RingCentral website. And it's plug and play because we map the MAC address directly to that user profile. So when they get it, they plug it into the wall, or they connect it to Wi-Fi, depending on the model you get, and it seamlessly connects. I'm just going to pivot really quick to the last 5 minutes into more of the visibility. Like, so we could cover a lot of the traditional PBX functionalities, but some of the things that you're going to get with RingCentral is the analytics, where we can now report on usage on their messaging, their video, their phone, but also company numbers, right? Like I mentioned, we're a CLEC. So if we take a look and maybe last month, and we want to have some visibility into the numbers we have within our environment, how many inbound calls and how many were answered, how many went to voicemail and things like that. This is like really good marketing tools. So maybe they're advertising in different places. They just want to grab that visibility into, where are we getting the most amount of calls, right? And things like that, right? We could give them that information. And from that to full cradle to grave reporting. So this is our performance reports, where I selected Wayne Gretzky. He's part of my PBX, and I kind of scroll through all of his calls, And, you can see here if the call's missed, if it was connected, if it went into voicemail, we date and timestamp everything. And you can see from here is that as I expand it, we see that call coming in, right? It got answered. It got also transferred into a call queue, right? How long was it in this, call queue or hunt group? Wayne answered it. They put it on hold. The live talk on hold, right? So we get full cradle to grave reporting that's also included in the platform. Okay. And one last thing I really wanted to cover before I handed it back to Steve. It's Steve's favorite part, right?
I wouldn't let you get out of not covering it.
I know. So this is going to be our QoS dashboard, right? And it's really cool. This is differentiated that you don't see it often, right? And it's really, really hard to, hold on, just try to refresh it. I'm trying to get some live data from our tenant. Okay, so while that loads, is that we have visibility into a call-by-call basis, not just on the call leg, right? That this how it was handled and managed and whatnot, but this is really for IT and how they could take a look at maybe poor calls or all calls and how we're rating calls. So this is a perfect example that I pulled up right before this meeting, is that these two users, they're having a call. This user's having a call to this other user, right, to and from, and client to RingCentral, both legs of the call. But notice here, this we're measuring a MOS score, and it's actually pretty low, 2.5. And we want to realize, okay, or analyze why we're having this issue. And we're displaying all sorts of information. They're having packet loss, the jitter on the call, right? The ISP that they're using, Comcast, you can see here. They're calling from the mobile app, right? The codec that we're using, even down to the actual device that this person's on their iPhone, okay, running iOS version 16. But here's the reason, probably why, is that they were on Wi-Fi for 92% of the call, and then they moved over for the next 7%. There's a 1% missing here, right? When they transferred over, maybe they left their house and there was some packet loss. So these are the kind of tools that you're getting from RingCentral to help give you that visibility that you might.
Yeah, that's critical, because I think we all realize that you never hear in real time about someone's concerns about call quality. It always seems like it's later, like tomorrow or the next day, even when somebody said, hey, I was on an important call last Tuesday and it was real choppy. What was it? So having those advanced analytics and having all that call telemetry and all that reporting is critical, especially in establishing and maintaining confidence with your team that you know exactly what the issues are and you can confront them. One thing I'll point out here, and I know we're up on time, one way this saved our bacon was we deployed this for a small business client, multi-site, and everything was working fantastic. They ended up calling us and saying, hey, we're having a call quality problem. Went back and looked at the quality versus volume graph at the bottom, drilled into it, and what we realized was the customer was downloading patches directly from Microsoft to every PC, not using a buffer or a staged server. And it was all at the same time. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And whenever they did that on Patch Tuesday, it will result in them soaking up all their bandwidth and having call quality issues. So we were able to find that and address it and resolve the issue. And it would have been a lot harder without this data. I'm not saying we could have never figured it out, but it would have taken us a lot longer. So these reports and this data can be critical in ensuring that you've got reliable internal connections, that you're not soaking up all your internet bandwidth with something. I mean, we had another one, which was a weird one, a medical practice that had guest Wi-Fi for their guests in the waiting room. And turns out that guests were streaming Netflix videos and the medical practice hadn't put any limit on their Wi-Fi. So their guests were literally, 6, 7 people in the waiting room streaming videos. That was what was causing the issue. So we were able to help them establish some, streaming limits on the guest Wi-Fi and resolve the issue. So once again, these analytics and this telemetry data and these reports are critical in ensuring you've got, a reliable voice service on your network. So, well, thanks everybody. Anybody have anything in closing as we wrap up our session here, Steve or anybody else?
No, I just think we appreciate the time here. It's I think two best of breed products really that you can use in unison together and really enhance that experience without a lot of extra training or disruption in your current business model today. So no, we look forward to maybe speaking to people if you want to hear more about it. Happy to do that. Thank you, Don and team.
Yeah, great. And thanks to all the attendees. We got all your questions. Everybody that asked a question, I'll make sure we follow up with you personally. Victor, I did get your inquiry. I'll make sure I take care of that personally. Everybody else, thank you very much for joining. We have recorded this. We're going to post it on our YouTube channel. Brittany will get that done probably tomorrow. You can send that to your friends and colleagues if you like. And of course, we're always here for you if you need us 24/7. And thanks to the RingCentral team for talking to us today about this really exciting Teams integration that makes the phone capability in Teams really so much better via RingCentral. So everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.